Carl Jung reveals the dark psychological meaning behind your dislike of cleaning the house. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. In today's video, we're diving into a surprising truth. Your dislike of cleaning the house isn't just procrastination. It may be a shadow message from your inner world, revealing emotions, wounds, and hidden parts of yourself that are asking to be seen. When you understand the psychological meaning behind the clutter around you, you begin to understand the clutter within you, and that awareness alone can transform your life, your energy, and your emotional freedom. As you listen, notice which insights resonate and ask yourself, what is my home trying to tell me about my inner state? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and share your own experience. Your perspective may help someone else on their journey. 1. Your home reflects your mind. Your home reflects your mind in ways far deeper than most people realize, because the physical space you live in is a mirror of your psyche, quietly revealing what the conscious mind avoids confronting. When Carl Jung spoke about the outer world being a symbolic expression of the inner world, he pointed directly to the truth that the environment you create around yourself is never accidental. The clutter on your table, the clothes draped over a chair, the dishes you keep telling yourself you will wash tomorrow. These are not simply tasks left undone. They are emotional signals. They represent the chaos, avoidance, and unprocessed feelings that sit beneath the surface of your awareness. The disorder becomes a physical expression of the unresolved conversations within you, the suppressed memories you do not want to revisit, and the lingering emotional weight you have not yet had the courage to lift. Avoiding cleaning, then, is not laziness, but an unconscious resistance to facing hidden parts of yourself, because every item out of place pulls on an emotional thread you may not be ready to follow. Dust, settling in the corners, mirrors the stagnant places in your inner world. Piles of clothes resemble identities you have tried on, outgrown, or abandoned, but never fully released. Unwashed dishes become symbols of emotional responsibilities you continue to postpone. Jung's insight that the unconscious always seeks expression becomes obvious the moment you pay attention to your environment, because everything you have avoided internally eventually manifests externally, asking you to notice what your spirit has neglected. This is why cleaning the house can trigger discomfort. It is not the physical labor, but the emotional confrontation. Every corner you touch forces you to acknowledge something within yourself. When you move objects, you disturb the stillness around memories you tried to ignore. When you throw things away, you symbolically release parts of your past. When you reorganize a space, you realign your internal world toward clarity. Cleaning becomes a quiet form of spirituality, a subtle spiritual awakening in motion, because it invites you to face your own energy rather than escaping it. Your home becomes a map of your emotional state, showing where you feel grounded, where you feel overwhelmed, and where your soul has been asking for renewal. As you begin to understand this, cleaning transforms from a chore into a dialogue with yourself. You start to see that restoring order outside helps restore order inside. Each surface you wipe becomes a clearing of stagnant emotions. Each object you place intentionally becomes a reaffirmation of who you are becoming. The act of creating cleanliness becomes a form of claiming your inner space again. And the more you engage with your environment consciously, the more your inner world responds by shifting from confusion to clarity, from heaviness to movement, from emotional resistance to emotional flow. Cleaning becomes not a task, but a symbolic healing ritual, a way of bringing light to the parts of your psyche that have remained in shadow for too long. So when you feel the resistance to clean, you can now recognize it as a message from the unconscious. The clutter is not mocking you, it is calling to you. Your home is trying to show you where you have been overwhelmed, where you have been avoiding yourself, and where something inside you is ready to transform. And as you gently bring order to your physical space, you open the door for your soul to follow, allowing your spirituality, your emotional clarity, and your spiritual awakening to rise naturally from within. If today's insight opened your eyes, comment below. I choose clarity to show your commitment to creating a home and a mind that truly supports your growth. 2. Mess as symbolic communication. When you begin to look at the space around you with deeper awareness, you realize that every unwashed dish, every pile of clothes left waiting, and every dusty corner is far more than a physical inconvenience. They are symbolic messages rising from the unconscious, forming a quiet psychological language that reveals what your inner world has been trying to say. The clutter becomes a subtle reflection of your emotional state, showing you exactly what you have postponed, avoided, or denied, because your home is not just where you live. It is an external expression of your inner landscape, shaped by your emotions, your memories, and the unresolved pieces of your past. Carl Jung often reminded us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And when you walk through your home, you can see this truth in action. The untouched stack of papers mirrors the decisions you feel afraid to confront. The neglected laundry reflects the responsibilities you feel unprepared to carry. And the dust lingering in the corners represents the emotions you have allowed to settle, because facing them feels heavier than ignoring them. As uncomfortable as it may be, what you refuse to clean is often the exact thing your soul is urging you to acknowledge, because the resistance is never about the task itself. It is about the meaning behind it. As you move through each room, you begin to understand that the mess is not judging you, but guiding you, showing you where your psyche feels overwhelmed or disconnected, and revealing the internal blocks interrupting your spiritual development. This is where spirituality becomes practical and personal, because tending to your environment becomes a form of self-dialogue, a way to face the parts of yourself that have been quietly asking for your attention. When you clean a closet, you are not just reorganizing objects, you are clearing mental space. When you wash dishes, you are rinsing away emotional residue from the day before. When you sweep the floor, you are symbolically sweeping away the stagnation inside you. These simple actions become transformative because they connect your physical world with your inner world, showing you that caring for your space is an act of caring for your soul. By seeing your home in this deeper psychological and spiritual way, you begin to approach clutter with compassion instead of shame. You start to understand that your environment is not a reflection of failure, but a map pointing toward the parts of you that need healing grounding, and intentional attention. Cleaning becomes a spiritual practice, a quiet ritual of alignment where your hands move through physical objects while your mind softens and your heart opens. Each small task becomes a step toward harmony, revealing that spirituality is not something separate from ordinary life. It is woven into the way you create order, restore balance, and honor your inner state through the care of your outer world. And as you tend to your home with awareness and sincerity, you begin to notice how the act of cleaning helps you return to yourself more centered, more clear, and more connected to the deeper wisdom that has been trying to reach you through the language of your surroundings. 3. Cleaning as a Jungian ritual of transformation. To clean consciously is to step into a quiet ritual of rebirth, because every gesture you make is not just about organizing objects, but about releasing old energy that has settled into the corners of your life. When you lift a piece of clutter, when you wipe dust from a forgotten surface, you are not only restoring order, you are engaging in an intimate conversation with the parts of yourself you often overlook. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this is exactly why your home becomes a living reflection of your inner world. The mess you see outside is often the emotional and psychological weight that sits within you. Cleaning, when done with awareness, becomes a gentle yet powerful bridge between your conscious and unconscious mind, what Jung called individuation, the process of integrating your shadow and your light so you can reclaim your whole self. When you avoid cleaning, it is rarely laziness. It is a silent resistance to facing the parts of you that feel overwhelmed, unbalanced, or unresolved. Your environment holds memory. It holds unspoken stories. It holds emotional residue that you have not yet had the courage to acknowledge. So when you avoid wiping that counter or clearing that corner, you are not avoiding the task. You are avoiding the confrontation with your own inner chaos. Through the lens of spiritual wisdom, your home is not just a physical space. It is a symbolic extension of your psyche. And every object you ignore is a message your soul is waiting for you to read. But the moment you choose to clean with intention, the meaning shifts completely. Each movement becomes a quiet transformation of matter and meaning, because as you release the buildup in your outer world, you begin releasing the buildup within your inner world as well. You feel the shift long before the room is fully clean. The air becomes lighter, your thoughts become clearer, and your breath settles into a slower rhythm, as if your nervous system finally believes you are safe enough to let go. This is why cleaning can instantly change your emotional state. It reconnects the fragmented parts of you, reminding you that you are not powerless in the face of your own mind. As you continue, you start to see that chaos was never the enemy. It was simply unprocessed energy waiting to be witnessed. Conscious cleaning transforms the room, but more importantly, it transforms your relationship with yourself. You step into the role of the observer, the healer, the creator of your inner and outer space. With every item you put in its place, you integrate a piece of your shadow. With every corner you illuminate, you reclaim a piece of your clarity. With every decision you make, you remind your subconscious that you are present, awake, and willing to participate in your own transformation. And as you move through your home with this deeper understanding, cleaning becomes less of a chore and more of a spiritual conversation between who you have been and who you are becoming. You realize that order is not the goal. The goal is alignment, presence, and the courage to face the emotional dust that has settled inside you. And in that quiet, intentional movement, you embody the deepest message of Carl Jung's teachings, that true change begins not in the grand moments, but in the small, conscious acts through which you choose to meet yourself fully. If you're ready to turn cleaning into a Jungian ritual of transformation, comment below. I restore my inner space. Let this be your commitment to your own spiritual growth. 4. The archetype of purification. Cleaning has always carried the quiet echo of ancient purification rituals, where bathing, sweeping, or washing were never just chores, but symbolic acts of clearing psychic residue from the soul. Long before modern homes existed, people cleansed their spaces as a way of resetting their inner world, letting dust, water, and motion become messengers of emotional renewal. In this sense, your dislike of cleaning is not laziness. It is the psyche sensing that purification requires inner confrontation. And as Carl Jung taught, what you resist persists, meaning the more you avoid this symbolic cleansing, the more your inner clutter quietly grows. Water, in Jung's symbolic language, represents the unconscious with all its hidden emotions, unspoken memories, and dormant truths. This is why a simple shower can calm your mind more effectively than hours of thinking, because water washes not just the body, but the emotional field. When you clean with water, rinsing a cloth, wiping counters, or washing dishes, you are symbolically renewing the emotional layers within yourself. The moment water touches the surface, the unconscious begins its subtle shift, reminding you that emotional clarity and spiritual awakening often start with simple, physical actions that realign your inner world. Every repetitive motion in cleaning, folding, scrubbing, sweeping acts, like a moving meditation that settles the nervous system and slows the mind's noise. In temples around the world, monks sweep the ground slowly, not because it is dirty, but because the rhythm clears the mind. When your hands move in these patterns, your breathing steadies, your thoughts soften, and the body naturally enters a state of presence. This is why cleaning, when done without rushing or resentment, can feel strangely soothing, almost like the mind is exhaling. Yet the resistance arises because cleaning forces you to acknowledge parts of yourself you would rather avoid. Dust in the corner mirrors neglected emotions. Piles of clothes reflect postponed decisions. A cluttered room reveals a cluttered psyche trying to speak. Jung taught that your environment is a direct extension of your inner landscape, and this is why the room you avoid cleaning often represents the emotion you avoid feeling. Tidying becomes an emotional doorway, one that requires honesty, patience, and a willingness to release what no longer fits your current identity. But there is quiet power in this ritual. As you clear a surface, your thoughts become clearer. As you put things back where they belong, your energy begins to reorganize. As the room opens, your mind feels spacious again, making room for insight, creativity, and inner peace. Cleaning becomes a symbolic shedding of outdated energy, a way of preparing your inner temple for transformation. It is not the dust that weighs you down. It is the emotional stagnation stored inside it. In moments like this, spirituality is not something abstract or distant. It happens in the small gestures, the slow breaths, the subtle shifts. Each act of cleaning becomes an invitation to step deeper into your spiritual awakening, reminding you that healing does not always come through grand rituals. Sometimes it happens through the gentle movement of your hands as your inner and outer worlds slowly return to harmony. 5. Resistance and shadow work. When you resist cleaning your space, you are not simply avoiding a chore. You are confronting the ego's defense mechanism, a subtle psychological shield protecting you from seeing truths you are not yet ready to face. Carl Jung described this as shadow resistance, the unconscious pull that keeps you clinging to familiar chaos because change feels more threatening than disorder. Your mind convinces you that the mess is harmless, but every untouched corner reflects an untouched emotion. The clutter becomes a quiet hiding place where your unprocessed fears, disappointments, and doubts stay comfortably buried. Even when the room frustrates you, a part of you chooses it because it mirrors what your inner world has carried for years. As you move through your home, each pile of clothes, each stack of dishes, each layer of dust becomes a symbolic message written by your unconscious. The ego whispers that leaving things as they are is safer than confronting the discomfort that comes with transformation. Jung taught that the shadow does not ask for perfection. It asks for honesty. And honesty often begins in the smallest, most ordinary places. When you avoid cleaning, it is not laziness. It is a silent ritual of pain, a way of saying, I am not ready to move forward, without ever speaking the words aloud. In spirituality and spiritual development, this avoidance reveals where your inner light is blocked, where healing has not yet been allowed to enter. Shadow work invites you to look beyond the surface and see what the disorder is trying to tell you. Familiar chaos becomes a cocoon that protects you from the emotional clarity you secretly fear. A clean environment demands accountability. It forces you to see yourself without distraction. A messy one gives you permission to postpone growth. This is why the resistance feels so powerful. It protects the parts of you that are still fragile, unready to be exposed to the light. But the moment you acknowledge this, something shifts inside you. You stop fighting the mess as a problem and begin seeing it as a mirror. Each small action, a shelf wiped, a drawer organized, a floor cleared, becomes an act of reclaiming yourself. You are not just cleaning. You are declaring to your unconscious mind that you deserve order, clarity, and peace. You are gently telling your shadow, I am ready to see you. I am ready to heal. You begin to understand that the way you treat your space is the way you treat your emotional life. Chaos outside reflects chaos inside. And when you start bringing order to one, you naturally begin soothing the other. Your environment becomes a classroom for your spiritual development. Every corner holds a lesson. Every item you put back in its place reminds you that you too have a place within yourself that is waiting to feel settled. And every moment of resistance becomes an invitation, a chance to meet the shadow with compassion instead of fear. By recognizing the psychological meaning behind your reluctance, you step into deeper self-awareness. And as you soften into this awareness, the resistance loses its power. The space around you slowly transforms, and with it, so do you. If this insight on resistance and shadow work resonates with you, subscribe for more Carl Jung-inspired wisdom that turns everyday habits into powerful tools for inner transformation. 6. Cleaning as self-worth and healing. Many people think resistance to cleaning comes from laziness, but when you look closer through the lens of spiritual wisdom and the teachings of Carl Jung, you realize it often comes from a much deeper wound: low self-worth, the quiet belief that you do not deserve a peaceful or orderly space. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this truth becomes painfully clear when you avoid cleaning, because the clutter in your home begins to mirror the clutter inside your heart. When you walk past a pile of clothes or ignore the dishes in the sink, you are not just avoiding a task, you are avoiding a part of yourself, a part that has forgotten it deserves clarity, beauty, and breathing room. This is why, the moment you pick something up with intention, your soul feels it immediately. Something wakes up inside you, as if your inner self whispers, "You are choosing to live again." Cleaning, then, stops being a chore and becomes an act of self-respect, a sacred declaration that you are worthy of renewal, and every small movement becomes a gentle reminder that you still want something better for your life. As you continue, you begin to notice something strange but powerful. Your energy shifts. You breathe a little deeper. You stand a little taller. You begin to reclaim parts of yourself that you abandoned when you stopped believing you were worthy of peace. Carl Jung taught that the soul speaks through symbols, and your home is one of the clearest mirrors of your unconscious mind. A messy room becomes a map of stagnation, a sign of emotional exhaustion, or even a quiet protest against a life that has felt too heavy. But when you move with purpose, even in small steps, you break the spell. You remind your unconscious that you deserve care, you deserve order, and you deserve to feel alive within the walls of your own life. Cleaning becomes a sacred ritual of dignity, not a punishment. It becomes the moment you tell your past pain, "You do not control me anymore." With every item put in its place, you rebuild your vitality. With every corner you clear, you make space for new energy, new clarity, and new beginnings. Jung believed that healing does not always come from grand breakthroughs. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through simple daily acts that reconnect you with your forgotten worth. As you clean, you are not just restoring your home, you are restoring yourself. You are choosing to honor your spirit. You are choosing to awaken to your value. And when you begin to feel that shift, even just a little, you start to understand that cleaning is not merely a task. It is an intimate journey back to the truth that you deserve peace, you deserve beauty, and you deserve a life that reflects the strength and light you carry within. 7. The home as a living temple. Your home is more than a physical structure. It is a quiet, breathing extension of your soul, reflecting truths about you long before you speak them. Carl Jung often reminded us that the outer world mirrors the inner one, and nowhere is this more visible than in the space you live in each day. The walls hold your unspoken emotions. The arrangement of your belongings reveals the rhythm of your inner life, and the energy of each room reflects a different part of the psyche you may not always acknowledge. When you step into the kitchen, you are entering the symbolic hearth of your personal power, the place where nourishment and energy are created. The way you maintain it often speaks to how you handle your own inner fire, whether you tend to it with care, ignore it out of exhaustion, or push it aside because facing that power feels overwhelming. As your eyes move toward the windows, You're not just looking at pieces of glass, but at symbols of truth, insight, and illumination. Clean, open windows reflect a mind willing to receive clarity. Covered or clouded windows suggest the opposite, a hesitation to let in the light of awareness, to see yourself without filters or excuses. Every forgotten corner and every neglected surface speaks a psychological language of its own. What appears to be a pile of clothes or scattered objects may actually be fragments of unresolved emotions, delayed decisions, and inner conflicts you haven't had the strength to face yet. Jung's insight that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, becomes painfully clear here. Your home quietly reveals the stories your mind tries to ignore. When chaos accumulates in your environment, it signals that chaos has begun to weave itself into your thoughts. And when order returns to the outside, peace begins stitching itself slowly back into your inner world. An aligned home creates an aligned psyche. When your surroundings are balanced, your nervous system relaxes, your mind becomes sharper, your emotions flow more gently, and your spirit feels supported. This is why cleaning is not merely a practical task, but a symbolic ritual of reclaiming your inner alignment. Each time you clear space, you clear energy. Each time you organize, you gather scattered parts of yourself. Each time you bring order, you tell your inner world, I am ready to return to myself. As you move through your home, your living temple, you participate in a subtle yet profound act of healing. The environment responds to your intention, and you respond to its transformation in return. This dance between inner and outer worlds is not accidental. It is a part of spirituality, a step on the path of spiritual awakening, where your surroundings become a mirror of your consciousness. When you treat your home as a sacred extension of your being, you begin to feel how every shift in your space echoes a shift inside you. And the more lovingly you tend to that space, the more effortlessly your spirit begins to rise. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any powerful insights like this. And if you're ready to honor your home as the sacred temple of your inner world, type in the comments, "My home reflects my highest self." 8. Integration. From shadow to wholeness. When you explore the idea of cleaning through Carl Jung's perspective, you begin to see that this simple act is really a form of inner integration. Because every time you clean, you are not just organizing objects, you are quietly bringing your light and your darkness back into harmony. Jung taught that whatever you avoid externally mirrors something unresolved internally. So when you resist cleaning, it is not because you lack discipline. It is because a part of your unconscious is revealing what feels scattered, heavy, or forgotten within you. Cleaning becomes a living symbol of the inner sorting process that spirituality and spiritual development always demand. Deciding what memories to release, which emotions need attention, which beliefs no longer belong, and which aspects of yourself are ready to be reclaimed. When you pick up a single item and return it to its place, you are practicing the same inner movement of putting your emotional life back into order. When you clear a surface, you are clearing mental fog. When you sweep a floor, you are sweeping the parts of your psyche that are asking for renewal. Because of this, cleaning is never about creating a perfect home. It is about healing through awareness, about letting matter and mind move in synchronicity instead of conflict. Your house does not need to be flawless, but it becomes a mirror that speaks to you, showing the exact state of the relationship between your consciousness and your soul. A cluttered corner reflects a cluttered emotion you have put off. A disorganized room mirrors a part of you that feels ungrounded. A task you keep avoiding reveals a truth you are not ready to face. Jung's famous reminder, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate," reveals its full power here. Because the more you avoid your environment, the more your inner world stays untouched, unintegrated, waiting for you to finally look at it. Cleaning then becomes a gentle form of shadow work, not dramatic or overwhelming, but steady, grounding, and deeply human. When you clean with awareness, you start noticing how your energy shifts. The air feels lighter, your chest loosens, your mind becomes quiet enough to hear yourself again. This is the real transformation, the subtle restoration of the connection between your inner self and the physical space you live in. The act of cleaning becomes a spiritual ritual, simple, practical, and powerful, showing you that healing often begins with small movements. And as you continue, you learn that integration is not about erasing the darkness inside you, but about understanding it, accepting it, and giving it a rightful place so that your entire being can breathe in unity. And when you finish, even if it is just one drawer, one table, or one corner, you feel that something inside has shifted too. You sense clarity, calmness, and alignment returning to you. You realize the real goal has never been a perfect house, but a restored relationship between your consciousness and your soul. A moment of inner harmony that tells you your outer world and inner world are no longer fighting each other, but finally walking together again. 9. Final lesson: presence as the true ritual. When you finally understand yourself through the lens of spiritual wisdom and the insights of Carl Jung, you begin to realize that transformation never arrives in grand, dramatic moments, but in the quiet decision to act with intention. It begins when you choose to clean one surface, clear one drawer, or restore one small corner of your home. Because these simple actions are far more symbolic than they appear. Jung famously reminded us, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this truth becomes strikingly clear the moment you notice how your resistance to cleaning is not about laziness, but about the emotions, memories, or internal chaos that these tasks quietly expose. A messy room is often a reflection of a cluttered mind, and every time you avoid tidying, you are unconsciously avoiding something within yourself that you don't want to confront. Yet the moment you choose to act, even in a tiny way, something shifts. Wiping a table or organizing a drawer becomes more than a household chore. It becomes the first sign of internal alignment. Energy softens, your mood becomes lighter, and you feel a subtle sense of grounding, as if your inner world recognizes the change. Scientists have long said that our physical environment shapes our neural patterns, and spiritual teachers echo this through generations, reminding us that outer order triggers inner renewal. When you take a deep breath and return to the present moment while cleaning, you give your mind a chance to reset, recalibrate, and reconnect to a calmer rhythm. William James once said, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another." And choosing to clean consciously is exactly that, a choice to interrupt chaos with clarity. As you move through your space with intention, presence becomes its own form of prayer. You start to feel how the very act of attending to your environment is also attending to your soul. Instead of rushing through the task or resenting it, you begin to honor it. Each motion becomes slower, softer, and more aware. The simple act of folding a piece of clothing or returning an object to its place becomes a quiet ritual of grounding yourself back into your life. In this way, presence transforms an ordinary moment into something sacred. It reminds you that you are capable of shaping your inner world through the outer one, and that healing is often found in places you overlook. And when you stay with that presence long enough, you realize that attention is the first prayer, and presence is the only ritual. Cleaning becomes a practice of meeting yourself exactly where you are, not running from the chaos, not numbing the discomfort, but gently facing it. Through every mindful movement, something inside you begins to reorganize itself too. Your energy becomes clearer, your emotions settle, and a softer, steadier version of yourself emerges. This is the rebirth that happens quietly, not through dramatic breakthroughs, but through the simple, intentional act of returning to what is right in front of you and choosing to bring order, clarity, and awareness into it. When you finally understand that your home mirrors your inner world, you begin to see that avoiding the mess was never about laziness. It was about listening to the parts of yourself you've been afraid to face. As Carl Jung taught, the outer disorder often reflects an inner conflict waiting to be acknowledged, healed, and transformed. And once you recognize this truth, every small act of cleaning becomes an act of reclaiming your peace, your clarity, and your power. If this message from spiritual wisdom brought you insight, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Your journey to deeper awareness continues from here. Carl Jung exposed the shadow side of intuitive introverts. Are you one? Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung, welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where we dive deep into the hidden layers of the human psyche. In today's video, Carl Jung exposed the shadow side of intuitive introverts. Are you one? We'll uncover the unseen forces that shape how intuitive introverts think, feel, and connect with the world. These insights aren't just theory, they're tools for transformation. As you listen, reflect on your own patterns, your solitude, and the symbols that guide your inner life. How much of what you call intuition might actually be your shadow speaking? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you recognize this side of yourself? Your awareness could be the very beginning of your personal growth and happiness. 1. The nature of the intuitive introvert. Carl Jung described the introverted intuitive as one of the rarest and most complex psychological types, a soul that perceives the world not through logic, but through symbols, images, and archetypes arising from the depths of the unconscious. Unlike those who rely on facts or external validation, these individuals navigate life through an inner compass, guided by invisible patterns. Their perception is turned inward, attuned to what is forming beneath the surface of reality, sensing potential before it manifests. To them, the material world is only the outer shell of a deeper spiritual reality. Every event, every encounter, carries meaning that transcends its surface appearance, and their awareness continuously translates these hidden dimensions into intuitive understanding. Such people often live as if they stand between two worlds, the visible and the invisible, the personal and the collective. Jung believed that their consciousness is directed toward what is still in the process of becoming, toward energies taking shape in the collective unconscious. This gives them a visionary quality, an ability to detect emerging possibilities long before others can see them. They perceive undercurrents of transformation moving through society, through relationships, and even through the fabric of time itself. Yet, this sensitivity can be both gift and burden. In a world that prizes logic and external achievement, their inner orientation can make them feel misunderstood or isolated, as though they speak a language that few can hear. For the intuitive introvert, intuition is not mere imagination, but a sacred sense, a spiritual instrument capable of perceiving the architecture of destiny. They often receive insight through dreams, symbols, or sudden flashes of awareness that feel like whispers from the divine. This form of knowing bypasses reason and connects directly to what Jung called the collective unconscious, the universal field of archetypes, memories, and spiritual energy that binds humanity together. Living in constant contact with this inner dimension gives them a natural inclination toward spirituality and spiritual awakening. Their inner life becomes a sacred landscape where meaning unfolds like a revelation, and through silence and solitude, they begin to understand the divine order behind apparent chaos. But the same ability that allows them to see what others cannot also requires profound inner stability. Because they sense what is unformed, they must learn to anchor themselves in reality without suppressing their intuitive flow. Many intuitive introverts struggle with self-doubt, questioning whether their perceptions are real or imagined. Yet spiritual wisdom teaches that truth often arrives as a quiet knowing, not as proof. The challenge of this path is to trust one's inner guidance while staying grounded in daily life, to honor the symbolic without losing balance in the tangible. In their journey of spiritual awakening, intuitive introverts discover that their gift is not to escape the world, but to illuminate it. They become translators of the unseen channels through which divine ideas enter human consciousness. When they embrace their inner visions without fear, they help others glimpse the deeper harmony of existence. This is their calling, to live as bridges between worlds, to bring light from the invisible into the visible, and to remind humanity that every intuition is a message from the soul seeking to awaken through us. Have you ever felt that your intuition sees beyond what others can grasp? If you've ever sensed hidden meanings, symbols, or energies that guide your life, share your experience in the comments below so others can learn from your spiritual wisdom. And if you're just beginning to explore this side of yourself, comment, "I'm awakening," to begin your journey as an intuitive introvert today. 2. Living between worlds. Those who live between worlds carry an extraordinary sensitivity that allows them to perceive the invisible long before it becomes visible. They can feel transformations stirring beneath the surface, sense emotional shifts in others before words are spoken, and foresee events that have not yet taken shape. Carl Jung described this as one of the rarest and most mysterious psychological orientations of the intuitive introvert, guided not by logic or evidence, but by an internal compass rooted in symbolism and unconscious knowing. This type moves through life attuned to patterns that most overlook. Yet, the modern world often distrusts what cannot be measured. It demands proof, data, and clear reasoning, creating an exhausting tension between what the intuitive perceives and what others accept as real. Living within this gap feels like existing between dimensions, one governed by facts and another illuminated by spirituality. This inner dissonance often leads to quiet withdrawal. When others misunderstand or dismiss their insights, intuitive introverts retreat into solitude, not out of defeat, but self-preservation. Their silence becomes both a shield and a sanctuary, protecting them from the noise of a world that cannot comprehend their depth. Jung warned that when a person's inner truth is rejected, it can descend into shadow, transforming intuition into doubt and sensitivity into self-criticism. The very gift that once connected them to divine intelligence becomes a source of confusion, as though their own mind betrays them. But beneath that silence, something sacred is happening. Solitude becomes the soil of spiritual development, a place where the intuitive learns to translate the language of the soul into conscious understanding. Through stillness, they begin to realize that intuition is not meant to be proven, it is meant to be trusted. It is not the product of imagination, but the whisper of the unconscious, guiding them toward higher awareness. As Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." This awakening unfolds when they stop seeking validation from the world and start honoring their inner vision. They begin to see that spirituality is not a distant concept, but a living presence moving through every subtle perception, every dream, and every feeling that cannot be explained by logic. When they embrace their gift without apology, their silence turns into strength, and their solitude becomes communion with something greater than themselves. The intuitive introvert's purpose is not to escape the world, but to act as a bridge between the seen and the unseen, to give form to the formless, meaning to the mysterious. They are called to merge insight with expression, reason with intuition, and action with inner peace. When they learn to live in harmony with both worlds, their presence becomes a quiet revolution. They do not need to prove what they sense. Their very being radiates understanding. In this balance lies the true essence of spirituality, a life guided by unseen wisdom, grounded in purpose, and illuminated by faith in the invisible threads that connect all things. 3. Jung's dark warning. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom reveals a haunting truth about the intuitive introvert, a personality gifted with deep perception, yet burdened by its own inner world. He warned that when such a person fails to express their visions through art, words, or creation, the same force that could inspire greatness can turn inward and destroy their imagination. Once a sanctuary becomes a labyrinth. Jung believed that every symbol and image born in the unconscious demands expression. For if ignored, it begins to rule the mind from the shadows. Until you make the unconscious conscious, he said, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. For the intuitive introvert, life is not lived through facts or logic, but through invisible patterns and intuitive knowing. They see meanings that others miss, sense movements of energy before events unfold, and live attuned to archetypes that speak in symbols rather than words. But this sacred sensitivity carries danger. When inner images are not brought into form, they gather power, haunting dreams, distorting emotions, and slowly taking possession of the psyche. The intuitive introvert may begin to lose touch with reality, drifting between visions and delusions, unable to tell where imagination ends and truth begins. Jung called this state possession by the unconscious, a spiritual paralysis in which one becomes the servant of one's own unexpressed depths. To prevent this collapse, Jung taught that expression is not optional, it is medicine. The intuitive introvert must translate their inner world into outer form to stay balanced. Whether through painting, writing, music, or simple conversation, creation becomes a sacred act of grounding. Jung often asked his patients to draw their dreams or sculpt their visions because the act of expression gives shape to what would otherwise consume them. Without this bridge between the inner and outer worlds, the intuitive introvert's intuition can devolve into fantasy, and their gift of foresight becomes an unbearable curse. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes, Jung wrote. Yet awakening requires integration, not escape. Every image that arises from within carries divine energy seeking manifestation. When it flows, it enlightens. When it stagnates, it poisons. This is the paradox of deep intuition. The very sensitivity that opens one to higher realms can also lead to confusion if left unexpressed. Jung's warning reminds you that your imagination is not an illusion, but a sacred responsibility. You must bring it into life, embody it, and let it speak through your creations. To live with spiritual wisdom means to honor both the seen and the unseen, the dream and the action, the soul and the world. When your inner visions find their voice, the unconscious no longer possesses you. It empowers you. Through expression, you transform the darkness of your mind into art, language, and understanding, turning what could destroy you into what ultimately saves you. Comment below. I embrace my shadow with wisdom. If you're ready to face the truth within and rise into your higher self. 4. The fine line between vision and delusion. The fine line between vision and delusion is one that Carl Jung believed the intuitive introvert walks every day. This type lives deeply within the unseen layers of existence, perceiving psychic truths and symbolic meanings that most people overlook. They are guided not by logic, but by the quiet pull of the unconscious, where archetypes and intuition shape their understanding of the world. What they perceive often feels sacred, like messages whispered from the soul of existence itself. Yet these revelations come with a cost, because what they see cannot be proven, and what they know cannot always be explained. They sense energies before they manifest, truths before they are spoken, but the world often calls them dreamers or eccentrics. When their inner knowledge is dismissed or misunderstood, it pierces them deeply, leaving them to wrestle between self-doubt and defiance. At first, they may try to silence their inner voice, questioning whether their insights are real or merely figments of imagination. They might begin to blend in, to conform, to protect themselves from rejection. But for others, the wound of being unseen pushes them in the opposite direction. They reject the world entirely, retreating into isolation where their visions grow louder and more intoxicating. The solitude that once nourished them now becomes a mirror that amplifies every symbolic thought, every metaphysical pattern, until they lose the grounding thread that connects them to ordinary life. Jung warned of this danger, calling it archetypal inflation. a state where the individual becomes possessed by the very symbols that once inspired them. The intuitive introvert begins to believe they are chosen, a prophet or savior sent to reveal divine truth, and slowly drifts from the balance between the human and the holy. In this inflated state, the ego fuses with the archetype, and the person confuses illumination with superiority. Their spiritual wisdom, once a bridge between consciousness and soul, becomes distorted by pride. They forget that true spirituality does not separate, it unites. The deeper one goes into the mysteries of the unconscious, the more humility is required to bear its light. Jung wrote, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." It means that every ascent toward spiritual awakening must be anchored in the soil of human experience. To see the invisible is a gift, but to remain compassionate, grounded, and human while holding that vision is the true art of the awakened soul. The intuitive introvert must learn to walk this path with both reverence and discernment to translate what is seen inwardly into wisdom that uplifts others outwardly. Their insights are not meant to separate them from the world, but to illuminate it. Every vision should lead back to love. Every revelation to humility. When intuition is balanced with awareness, their sensitivity becomes strength. When it is ruled by ego, it becomes an illusion. The journey of spiritual awakening is not about being special or chosen. It is about becoming whole, returning to oneself with greater understanding, and living as a vessel through which higher truth can move quietly, humbly, and with grace. 5. The healing path, expression, and creation. Healing for the intuitive introvert begins the moment you stop keeping your inner visions hidden and start giving them shape in the physical world. As Carl Jung once said, "What you resist not only persists, but grows in size." When you suppress the images, emotions, and insights that rise from within, they turn into psychic pressure, an invisible weight that distorts your energy and clouds your spirit. But when you transform those visions into form through art, writing, music, or any act of meaningful creation, you transmute that tension into light. This process is not just emotional release. It is the sacred bridge between your inner and outer worlds, where spirituality merges with reality and where spiritual development begins to take root. Expression becomes the language of the soul. It allows the unseen to be seen, the unspoken to be understood, and the abstract to find its form. Through expression, you convert chaos into clarity and silence into song. Kafka turned his haunting visions into words that spoke the language of alienation and longing. Van Gogh painted emotions that no words could hold, each brushstroke echoing the intensity of his inner fire. And Jung himself, guided by his own symbolic visions, filled the Red Book with drawings, reflections, and rituals that became a map of his psyche and a testament to the power of bringing the inner world into matter. These creators did not find peace by denying their depth. They healed by expressing it, transforming inner storms into art, wounds into wisdom, and solitude into revelation. For the intuitive introvert, this act of creation is not merely a choice, it is a necessity. Your inner visions, no matter how abstract or overwhelming, are messages from the deeper layers of your being, calling you to give them form so that they can complete their journey of becoming. Suppressing them leads to stagnation, but expressing them leads to transformation. When you write your truth, paint your emotions, or compose your inner music, you are not just creating, You are releasing, integrating, and evolving. You are allowing the sacred energy within you to move, to breathe, and to heal through creation. Every act of expression is an act of balance. It harmonizes your unseen spiritual essence with the visible world, reminding you that spirituality is not about escaping life, but shaping it through awareness. Each time you give form to what lives within, you strengthen the bridge between the soul and the senses, between imagination and embodiment. This is how you turn spirituality into a living experience, how you transform invisible potential into visible presence. The cure is not found in silence or isolation, but in the courage to express what only you can bring into existence. Through creation, you reclaim the wholeness of who you are and invite your spiritual development to unfold naturally, beautifully, and eternally. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next insight on healing and transformation. Comment below, "I heal through creation," to affirm your journey of expressing your inner light and reclaiming your spiritual power. 6. The need for grounding in reality. Even the most brilliant creativity loses its power when it isn't grounded in the physical world. Carl Jung, whose spiritual wisdom continues to guide seekers of truth, warned that intuition without embodiment can lead to illusion, detachment, and imbalance. For the intuitive introvert, this danger is real. You may spend hours wandering through ideas, symbols, and dreams so vivid they feel more alive than the external world. But without an anchor in your senses, your inspiration can dissolve into confusion. Jung taught that the antidote lies in integrating the sensation function, a return to the body, to the earth, and to the rhythm of ordinary life. Grounding isn't a rejection of your inner world. It is the bridge that allows your intuition to manifest into form. When you engage your senses, you bring heaven down to earth and give structure to your insights. The simplest acts, walking barefoot on the ground, cooking a meal, tending to a plant, or lighting a candle, carry the power to balance intuition with presence. These gestures are not meaningless routines. They are sacred moments of connection that align the physical with the spiritual. Jung believed that by anchoring yourself in the sensory world, you protect your psyche from being overwhelmed by what lies beyond it. In this grounded awareness, imagination transforms into creation, and visions gain shape through the language of action. It is not enough to feel deeply or to dream vividly. What matters is how those invisible truths find their way into your tangible reality. As Jung reminded us, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Every small mindful act becomes a declaration of wholeness, a way to embody what once existed only in thought. So when your mind drifts too far into the clouds of possibility, return to what is real and immediate. Feel the air fill your lungs. Watch the light move across the floor, or let your hands rest on the pulse of the world around you. These are the grounding rituals that allow intuition to serve life instead of escaping it. True spiritual wisdom isn't about living above reality. It's about merging spirit and matter until every breath becomes an expression of inner balance. The more you root your intuition in daily practice, the more your creativity becomes authentic, practical, and alive. Through presence, sensation, and routine, your spiritual awakening stops being an abstract dream and becomes a living, breathing reality. 7. living as a visionary in a material world. Modern society glorifies logic, speed, and productivity, reducing life to numbers, metrics, and achievements, while dismissing the unseen world of symbols as impractical. Yet for the intuitive introvert, the language of the unseen is their native tongue. You move through a world that demands proof. While your compass points toward meaning, you are constantly torn between what the world values and what your soul knows to be true. Carl Jung understood this struggle deeply. He saw the intuitive introvert as a rare and complex type, one whose task is not to escape the world, but to bring the invisible realm of spirit into the tangible structure of reality. To live this way is not withdrawal. It is an act of profound courage, a form of spiritual awakening where your inner life becomes your greatest teacher. Remaining true to your inner vision in a material-driven culture requires strength few possess. It is easy to conform, to chase validation, to bury one's own truth beneath the noise of collective approval. But the intuitive introvert feels an inner pull that cannot be silenced, a call to live according to symbols and inner images that reveal what others cannot yet see. Jung described individuation as the sacred process of becoming oneself, of reconciling the inner and outer worlds until they no longer oppose each other. This process demands authenticity even when it isolates you, patience even when the world rushes past, and faith in your unseen wisdom even when others doubt it. Living in this way transforms spirituality from belief into embodiment. It becomes not an abstract idea, but a living current that guides you through every moment of uncertainty. Each day becomes a quiet rebellion against superficiality, choosing depth over distraction, meaning over conformity. You begin to live as a visionary among the blind. You understand that true spirituality is not found in escaping the world, but in illuminating it with consciousness. To live symbolically is to perceive divine significance in ordinary things. A conversation, a sunset, a silence. This is the intuitive introvert's power, to feel beyond appearances and sense what is yet unspoken. Jung once said that man's task is to become conscious of the contents that press upward from the unconscious. In following that calling, you honor not only your own awakening, but also the collective evolution of humankind. Every act of staying centered amid chaos is a victory of spirit over matter. Every moment you choose authenticity instead of adaptation strengthens your inner light. You are not meant to abandon the material world, but to infuse it with soul. Through this, your life itself becomes a bridge between what is seen and what is eternal. And in walking that path, steady, quiet, unwavering, you embody the essence of spiritual wisdom that Jung sought to teach. That the awakened individual is not one who escapes the world, but one who transforms it from within. To affirm your commitment to living with vision and purpose, declare it now. Comment below, "I live with higher vision," to honor your path as a conscious creator in this material world and inspire others to align their lives with spiritual wisdom. When you begin to recognize the shadow within the fears, the suppressed desires, and the hidden motives, you start the real journey of self-understanding. Carl Jung reminded us that what we resist not only persists, but also shapes our destiny. So if you are an intuitive introvert, honor your inner world, explore your depths, and allow your shadow to become your greatest teacher. If you found this message meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming explorations into the mind and soul.